Hey everybody, Dustin Schmidt back here again. Today I want to talk about the new releases from Canon. They just released two new hybrid cameras. They've got their new flagship camera, the R1, and then the one that's probably more interesting to me, which is the R5 Mark II. So as an owner of many Canon cameras over the years, current owner of a few Canon cameras, I have some thoughts on these new releases. And with them being out relatively new here, only a few people have really shot with them, but everybody's kind of got thoughts. I've got my own, and so I want to share some of those with you. So I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about, this, maybe a little bit about the specs, get into some of that. It's not going to be, a reiteration of the stuff that you can go out and find on Canon's website or numerous, launch videos. But just as an owner operator, someone who uses a lot of hybrid cameras, who does photography and also does video, that's kind of where these cameras sit. They are true hybrid cameras. They're not cinema cameras. They're not purely stills cameras. So where do these fit within Canon's lineup? And as a user of bodies like this, where do I think these cameras kind of fall? So at the moment, my daily driver in terms of a hybrid camera is the Canon R5C. And I've used this camera for all kinds of stuff, talked about a lot. I use it as my primary stills camera. I also use it as a B or C camera for video work. And I match it up with other Canon cameras for video work. I've matched it up with Red cameras for video work. And it truly is a mini hybrid kind of cinema camera. That's one of the things I really like about the R5C. It's got a lot of the features that make video shooting very easy with this camera. So when they announced these two new cameras, I was really, obviously interested in the stills part of what I do. I don't talk about that quite as much here on the channel because I think as far as stills go, we've kind of hit some plateaus really in terms of image quality in the last few years. There's been some really kind of marginal improvements, but honestly, you could buy any camera body that was released in the last several years and go out and make great work with it in terms of what the sensor can provide to you. I think that's what you're seeing with some of these new Canon bodies, specifically the R5 Mark II and R1 in terms of the autofocus features that it gives you. A lot of that is due to the increased processing power and what it can do for identifying subjects or locking on AF tracking, stuff like that. If you're a sports or wildlife shooter or possibly shoot, weddings or events, I think this is a really good upgrade, or some of the new modern upgrades in cameras. You can really take advantage of some of those advancements. And it may make sense for your work to spend that extra money to do that. Now, the type of work that I do, which is primarily corporate, type stuff, I don't quite need those crazy extremes maybe in focusing. And really what I mean by that is that what I currently have in the R5C when I'm shooting hybrid, the autofocus features in that camera are good enough for 99% of the work that I do. And so I haven't felt a need to have to upgrade to improve that. And not only as somebody who loves cameras and loves to talk about cameras, and that's why I do this type of thing, just because I enjoy this stuff, but I also look at it from a business perspective and a work perspective. Whenever I'm looking to buy anything new, especially a camera body or lenses or things like that, is, probably a couple different criteria. One, is it going to make my life easier? That's one of the key things that I really look at. Is this piece of gear going to solve a problem that speeds up production, speeds up post-production, or genuinely allows me to make better work in less time? So there's that aspect of it. The second aspect of buying almost any piece of equipment that I buy is it going to make me money? Is it going to make the business of Dustin Schmidt Photography that I run, is this piece of gear going to improve my bottom line at the end of the year? And for some of these upgrades that manufacturers are trying to push, the answer is really no. My clients don't necessarily care what I'm coming out to shoot on, and they're not really picking up marginal improvements in terms of a half stop of DR, things like that. As long as things are lit correctly, framed correctly, all the things that make for a good image, the stuff that I have really kind of accomplishes that. And so that's where I kind of have to take a step back when I look at some of this new stuff and decide, is it really for me? In terms of the R5 Mark II, that's the more compelling camera out of these two for me. Again, not shooting sports or wildlife. I think if you do that, the R1's 24 megapixels is the sweet spot. That's been that way for a long time. There's a reason why there's less megapixels in that camera. And it's just for the sheer volume of shots and things that you need to get there. You don't need more megapixels than that really to go out and do professional work. If you're doing more advertising, corporate type of stuff, that's where the R5 Mark II and I think the 45 megapixels really helps. It comes in for different crops and things that you might need to do. I really like that out of that camera. The R5C that I currently shoot with, I love the 45 megapixels that I get out of that. You know, the R5 Mark II is supposed to have a lot better dynamic range. We've got to wait and see. I think it stands to reason that it will because of the newish nature of the sensor and some of the electronics around it. It's backside illuminated sensor. It has two processors behind it, so it gives you that extra kind of computational stuff that you need. I think it has some improved noise reduction for some stuff that's happening kind of behind the scenes. So a lot of features there that are going to make that beneficial when it comes to shooting. I think a couple of the big gotchas, again, compared directly to the Canon R5C. Now the R5 Mark II has a full-size HDMI. That's good. I do think you need that. It's less of a hassle. One of the things I've done on mine is just to put an adapter here that allows me to convert from micro HDMI to full-size HDMI. And I use that in conjunction with the clamp here on the side. And so I worry less about the port for that because it is all clamped in. There's strain relief and that type of stuff. But still welcome. I would rather not have all this gack on here if I don't need to. So I guess that's a plus, but I've figured a way around that. They talk about the battery life being slightly better. It's the new battery has a little more. I think it puts out more consistent power. It's still the same size though. As far as I know, it's probably still the same battery capacity. So I don't know that you're going to get a ton more higher run times on that. So you're still kind of back to maybe your old solutions, but I think that's true of any mirrorless camera. You're not going to get huge run times out of these tiny little batteries. You know, in terms of image quality, the new R5 Mark II has C-Log 2, which is technically a bigger range of tones that you can get out of your camera. And if the sensor's good enough, that's going to allow you to utilize all those, then you'll probably get better image quality. What I have read or seen other places from people that have shot with it, the people that get the advanced cameras, I've already watched some of those reviews, is that they're saying that it's probably up there comparable with maybe the C70, C400, C500 Mark II, and C300 Mark III in terms of image quality. It's made that little extra bump or extra step up that perhaps you don't get out of maybe the R5C. That being said, I've never not had enough dynamic range in the R5C to do the type of work I need to do. So I would really challenge anybody that can't make good work or get what they need out of a camera like the R5C if the R5 Mark II is suddenly going to make that happen for you. More is always better. I want more dynamic range. I want all that kind of stuff too, but we've reached that tipping point. We are there. Like, you can get what you need to out of stuff. So I am happy to see that stuff, but I don't know that's necessarily a turning point for me in terms of trying to upgrade from an R5C and makes me want to buy that camera. You know, overall for both of these new releases and someone that owns an R5C, I don't think I'm going to be upgrading to this new camera right away. Eventually, yeah, I probably would like to. I want to wait and see how some things shake out. If the image quality is that much better, then that might be something that pushes me to do it. I am a little bit worried about something like the lack of a fan on the new R5 Mark II. First one was really plagued by, overheating. I run my cameras for a long time. That for sit-down interviews that might run a couple hours, cameras stay on, different people hopping in and out. I need to be able to run things nonstop. I can't afford for anything to be overheating. It's why I bought the R5C. It's one of the things I like about it. It has a built-in fan. In order to get a built-in fan on the R5 Mark II, you're going to have to buy the battery grip. So I think that's an extra $400 on top of the price. So, by the time you add that, you need the two new batteries to run the new battery grip. They won't run on the old batteries. You're starting to approach 5K territory for this mirrorless camera. And again, if you make your living, I don't think that's too much money necessarily to spend for anything. But you got to ask yourself if you might be better served with some of the other tools that are out there. So I am really excited to see what happens with these cameras in the coming, weeks when they start getting out in people's hands. I'd love to see what people are doing with them. Dig a little deeper into dynamic range, stuff like that. Maybe if I get an opportunity, I would rent one of these cameras if I have a specific use case for it. But for now, I'm holding off on buying it, despite being very excited to see where the tech's going. And we'll probably buy one used down the road. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.